welcome to One Love, One Connection with Us. And I am your host, Reverend Arlene Kahet, and my business partner, Reverend Harvey L. Bailey, who's going to be on with me a little bit later, is just running a little bit behind, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. And tonight we are One Love, One Connection, One Us presents Controlling Relationships. And I want to preface this by saying we generally talk about relationships of an intimate nature, but understand that controlling relationships can go beyond just, it could be a part of your friendships, part of your business dealings, things of that nature, but we are going to go in on that a little bit later. But first, before we get started, we are going to get prayed in. And this particular prayer is the Lord's Prayer that is sung in Aramaic by Thomas Shalar Walker. And if you find that you like this prayer, he also does prayers in Aramaic and other prayers in Aramaic. And he actually has an album coming out pretty soon. And if you are interested, make sure that you friend him on Facebook.
Ahu Dobishmaya Nil Quadashamu Tete Mount Chutu Newe Chuanayu Etana Dobishmaya Epara Halalakma Bishukwana Yumana O Shuklan Kobi Etana Depkan Shukwan Kaioe Ulat Elam El Nesula Elapistan Menbisha Mitildelu How Mount Ukila Uchus Bukta La 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 Maumi
And we're back. So I think that my business partner has come in. Hold on. Is
Hey,
that you, Reverend Harvey? Hey.
that's me. It's me. It's me in the flesh, alive and kicking.
Hey. And just for that, here's some applause.
Oh, well, thank you. You're much too kind. You're much too kind. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you all. Love you all. Kisses.
So, what all that's happened so far is that I've gotten us prayed in, and we are going to talk about controlling relationships. So, what I'm going to, I did when I was doing a little bit of research about controlling relationships. Much of the information that's out there seems to be geared towards people who are coupled together, but I just want people to know that this can go beyond just your relationships with your somebody that you are in a intimate relationship with, but it can go beyond that, and it can go as far as your friends, your family, work, business. It just shows up a little bit differently, and I guess you can say that the ways of dealing with all of those situations it really does come down to, again, setting your boundaries of what you find acceptable. But I am going to talk a quick moment about the 20 signs that your partner is controlling. Now, this information comes from Psychology Today, and you can find it online. And what the number one way to tell if your partner is controlling is if you are being isolated from your friends and family.
Oh,
and Oh yes, oh yes. That seems to be the number one thing, or at least it comes up in the top two things that are dangerous patterns that they talked about. When it comes to isolating your friends. And one of the reasons why a person who is controlling would do this is so that, you are no longer, you don't have any foundation with the people who have always been there for you. And the idea is for them to, I guess you could say, have you be more centered on them and focused on them and have them as your form of support. And what they'll try to do is they will try to turn you against anyone that you're relying on for support besides them. And their goal is to strip you of your support network and ultimately your strength. So if you find yourself in that particular situation, you may want to head in the opposite direction. Do you have any comments about that, Reverend Harvey?
Oh, I'm taking it all in, and this is what I'm thinking. You're talking about controlling, and they isolate you from your family. It just kind of make me think of Goldie. I'm your mama. I'm your daddy. I'm that Negro in the alley with the baseball bat, baby. I'm your all there is. So basically what you're saying is stay away from people with pimp mentalities.
Oh, okay. So maybe in your friendships, I don't know. It would probably show up as the person, constantly, trying to dig in and pull you away from your friends, other friends other than them. So just to give an idea of how it would show up in a friendship situation, or even with your family members. If I know that I've seen this. I've actually heard about it. I haven't witnessed it myself, but I've even heard about it in terms of a mother-son relationship where the mother, I'll give you a little backdrop. There's a friend of mine who has been having trouble with her marriage for a number of years now, and one of the things that she talked about was that she had put him out. She had put him out because he wasn't really living up to what she felt should be the expectations of what a man's role is. Being a provider. Being the definition that she said was that he was a nice guy, but that that she was in too much into her masculine energy being with him. Well, one of the things is that instead of staying in the town or city that his wife and his daughter was in, he quit his job and he moved back home to Mama. Okay. And one of the things that Mama would do is what she did literally was drain him of all of his money. And she had always had a problem with with her daughter-in-laws, because she has more than two. And one son had actually set the boundaries and said, I'm going to give you some money, but I'm not, I got a family to take care of. I'm not doing that. but she would constantly tap her sons for money to take care of them. She would, she did aid in trying to be divisive in their marriages. And again, one son, set his boundaries, and the other one, kind of let her drain him dry. So again, like I said, it isn't exclusively intimate relationships. Now, the number 2 is chronic criticism, even over small things. And, one of the things that you should know is that the criticisms can start in a small way. And what will happen is that the other person will convince themselves that the partner's criticism is warranted. And I'm going to say that I actually had that experience in the person that I had, was married to the first time. And one of the things is that it was his way of not really addressing what my concerns were or what my needs were, and verbally manipulating the situation so that I would think that what I was asking for was unwarranted. I think one time I had told him that about my need to be, for him to be demonstrative, to show that he cared, and his answer to that was, well, I bought you that truck, and I'm like, well, yeah, I know that you bought me the truck, but I know that you bought me the truck, but I'm talking about something that I'm requiring from the relationship. This is something that I'm wanting, that I'm needing. And, I have to say that I literally try to beat a dead horse with that one. And finally I had gotten really to the I'm just being honest about it. But I finally got to the point where I realized, I'm not going to be able to get this from this individual. What that particular need was not important enough for him to address it. And he thought that that this was a small thing. In fact, when we did go to marriage counseling, he was like, "You're leaving me because of these small things." I'm like, these small things turned into big things when you compound them. Mm-hmm. It was like a large snowball. And I will say, again, I'm sure that we all deal with controlling people, but I know that one of my friends, periodically, and the thing is that I recognize that, and I kind of swatted down like a fly, like, oh, okay, whatever. One time, I think she had suggested that, if I work my business and, work on my gifting, with, being an energy healer and being an intuitive, that I could do exceptionally well. Well, see, she wasn't exactly. And my internal comment to that would be, well, shoot, you're not doing well either. I'm not exactly seeing where you're excelling. So, again, it's one of those things where I was like, okay, with her, I was able to easily swat that away, like, whatever. I'm going to continue doing what it is that I'm doing and pressing forward. And because I ultimately figured out that what I needed was that find a way, if I'm going to do it full time, that I'm going to get some type of mentoring from people who are successfully doing it instead of trying to, instead of listening to her. Do you have any experiences that you want to share, Reverend Harvey?
None that I want to share. But I'm definitely enjoying hearing about yours. And, of course, I'm somewhat familiar with that last one there. But, yeah.
Okay. So the third one is veiled or overt threats against you or them. Now, I will say, yeah, now I can't say that I actually had any problems with that. The people who I knew have enough, sort of self-preservation that they're not thinking about, if you leave me, I'm going to hurt myself. They weren't into doing that. But essentially, that's what the number 3 is. Or if they threaten you. Now, here's one of the things that people should be mindful of, especially if they are threatening you. Then there is a strong possibility that relationship can turn violent. And so, hey, just think of that as a big neon flash sign like warning, warning, go the other direction. Anything you would like to add to that?
Definitely go the other direction. When it comes to being in a relationship with somebody and the words start to get really harsh and they become threats, you gotta kind of take that serious. That's not one of them things where you can say, oh, he or she just says that. No, when somebody starts to threaten you, now you got a real issue on your hand because we speak what's really inside of us, And true, there's a difference between our actions and our words, but when it's said enough, it starts to become a reality. So if somebody threatens you enough times, it's just a matter of time before you make them upset enough that they actually take action. And then that's when they say, oh, well, I didn't mean to do it. Yeah, sure you did. You threatened to punch me in my eye like 16 times. Now you just finally got around to it. The worst part is once they do it once, it's open field now. That one time just opens the door. So don't let it get to that one time. If you get threatened, that should be on your list of deal breakers.
Non-negotiables.
Yeah, non-negotiables. That's a strong deal breaker. You're going to do what? Oh, well, I think it's time to move on.
What's sort of interesting, and this is a side note, it turns out that the person that I've nicknamed Bueller, it turned out that he was a person, a private inside joke, ladies and gentlemen, but anyway, it turned out that I found out later that he was a person who was into beating women. So, apparently I must have scared him senseless when he found out that I had at one time this martial arts.
It does not surprise me that he would be that way. He is, not only controlling, he's also very manipulative, and, he was a bit misogynistic. So that just says, that fits right in line with who he is.
Okay, so number 4 on the list from Psychology Today, they make acceptance, caring, attraction conditional. So, some of the suggestions that they're listing here is I don't feel like being intimate with you, or I love you so much more when you make these sales or you're dressed a certain way. If you keep working at, I would feel more attracted to you if you lost more weight. If you'll be more attractive to me. So, really,
Mhm.
really, if somebody's love is conditional, then
Mhm.
you don't want that. You really don't want that. And it kind of reminds me of like back in the schoolyard when, I won't be your friend if you talk to him or her. Like, really?
Right.
Uh, we're a bunch of grown-ups now. We can leave that schoolyard type of foolishness aside.
But we really can't because a lot of people still live their adult life that same way, a need for acceptance, and because they want to be accepted by people, that comes from low self-esteem, that they're willing to do things, and so other people can still use that emotional blackmail. If you do this, then I like you, or when you do that, I like you better, and so people want to feel that way because they're not getting it from within. And so, yeah, they're
Mm-hmm.
still susceptible to it even into their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s,
Yes, sir.
and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Some people even come back from the grave just because somebody said, I wish you'd come back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyway, go ahead. You were saying.
Okay. Now, the number 5 is from that same article, an overactive scorecard. So here's what they mean by that. Say, for instance, when you have a friendship with someone, there is a sense of reciprocity that's built into it. There's a sort of a give and take. There's a sort of an ebbing and flowing. But when the person is, actually keeping track of the things that, that they do for you in comparison to what you do for them, and then go into that place of, holding a grudge against you when they're demanding a favor from you that you can't do. They're looking to get the upper hand in the relationship. It's just another tool that they are using to get their way in the relationship. Now, I suppose my thinking on that is that, if you're keeping score, this is not a good thing. And if they're trying to guilt you into it, or they're going to hold a grudge over it, or, because you don't do it, you may want to rethink that relationship. What do you think, Reverend Harvey?
I think you definitely want to rethink that relationship. Anytime someone puts unnecessary pressure on you, a relationship by itself comes with its own set of pressures that should be expected in a relationship. But when you have someone, you're in a relationship, and it's supposed to be a team. So you've got your teammates saying, well, why do I always have to do this? Why do I always have to do that? I'm going to say this from two perspectives. One, if someone's saying that to you, look to see if it's really true. Because sometimes you're really not making your end. Other times it's a problem because maybe you are making your end. But either way, it's a problem with the relationship. When it gets to, someone stating or keeping score, as Arlene is saying, and they're stating to you that they're doing more work than you are, that's a big problem. And at that point, that's a great time to take a pause and consider, am I in this relationship or do I want to stay in this relationship? Because couple things could be going on there. One, it could just be their perception. You could be showing up more than they think you are. Or two, you may not be showing up because you may be preoccupied with something else. And now may not be the right time to be in that relationship. Now, when it goes to the next level where, one, I'm keeping score, okay, Arlene, I'm always doing the dishes and cooking. You don't do anything but sit there and eat. Then it gets worse. You know what? You would be much better if you cook sometimes. Or I'd like you more if you did the dishes. Now we're getting into a really bad area. So if you got that combination, you really may want to think about getting out of the relationship. Because without some help, it's not going to get any better. Instead, it's going to get worse. You're already on a slippery slope, and you're starting to slide down really fast when you see those things show up.
Okay. So we are going to take a quick break and, go ahead, pay the bills, and listen to a song. Do you have a request, Harvey?
No, actually I don't. Anything you play is going to be good.
Okay. All right, we'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome to the Family Healing Circle, where we inspire awareness, manifesting, motivating, and educating every day. On Sundays, it's Make Me Feel It Radio with Stacey Ferguson. This show is starting a movement as it seeks to inspire people to grow and change the world through personal and financial development. On Mondays is Totally Whole with Pastor Cook and Dr. Maxine. This show addresses issues related to spirituality and mental health. On Tuesdays, it's Money Matters with Chastity A. Wells. This show will help you get your money right and your financial house in order. On Wednesdays, it's the RN Perspective with our own RN, Stacey Lamore. Change the way you think about health by understanding the connection you have with all things and how your habits affect your health. Learn to heal holistically. On Thursdays, it's 4 weeks, 4 different shows. 5 weeks, 5 different shows. The first Thursday of the month is Total Empowerment, where beauty and strength is enhanced inside and out with Angela Hardy. The second Thursday of the month is One Love, One Connection, One Us. Turn your relationship into a spiritual union with Reverend Arlene Kahet and Reverend Harvey L. Bailey. The third Thursday of the month is the Sacred Masculine Show with Reverend Jamel Gilliam, a show for spiritual brothers and the women who love them. The fourth Thursday of the month is the Inner Consciousness with Reverend Harvey L. Bailey. This show explores the inner world of our mind and gives advice on spiritual growth and self-healing. The fifth Thursday of the month is Healing Paradigm with Reverend Arlene Kahet, healing the mind, body, and spirit through changing viewpoints. On Fridays, it's Let's Talk Love, Sex, and Nutrition. It's sexual health and fitness like you've never heard it before with Vondria Walters and Zakia Lana. The Family Healing Circle on Blog Talk Radio, 7 to 9 p.m. every day. And now you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Family Healing Circle Media. Family Healing Circle, healing the mind, body, and soul.
Okay, we're back.
Yay.
So, okay, so we are talking about, the 20 signs to show whether or not you are in a controlling relationship. Now, so far we have gone through the top 5, and the first one was the person tries to isolate you from your friends and family. And number 2 was chronic criticism, even if it's small things. 3, veiled or overt threats against you or them. 4, making acceptance of caring for you conditional, or attraction to you conditional. Number 5 was an overactive scorecard. And number 6 is using guilt as a tool. to get you to do what they want. I mean, it is, and here it's just pure, blatant manipulation. And again, I've had my own experiences with this, with I guess with in the relationship that I was in, and also with a friend of mine. And in the relationship, it just showed up as, whenever I would talk about a need, he would do his best to try to make me feel guilty about not recognizing what it was that he was doing for me instead of actually addressing what the needs are. Now, as far as the friend is concerned, there have been many examples, but I do remember one particular time when it was that they were wanting me to come down. My friend was wanting me to come down to where they lived, and I think at the time one of the things that I will say is that I did not have the full understanding that the MARC train was only about $7 going and coming back, so it's a total of like $14. But the thing is that I believe she had said something about setting up the opportunity that, coming there. And it was just purely for her own means. And all I was really thinking at the time was like, shoot, you provide the cash, I'll come. But at the time, but I was not about to let, I'm like, I did not, traveling from here to there on Amtrak is a bit pricey. So, but on the MARC train, like I said, it was before I understood about the MARC. But I guess my thinking, my short cash was short at the time, and, I didn't have any money at the moment, and she apparently didn't either. So, but, should I, really. So, that, using that, she did. She tried to use guilt as a tool to do that. And this is just one example. There have been many. And
I sure hope she ain't listening.
We're by ourselves right now.
That don't mean she won't listen to this. She's like, she's talking about me. I recognize all that.
Oh yes, but it wasn't the first time. It wasn't the first time. And ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a heads up, it's just that when I went ahead and when I started doing my research, it's just that I began recognizing the pattern. So it's always good to provide knowledge for yourself, so that at least this gives me an idea of how to deal with it in terms of setting up my boundaries and just, and staying steadfast and firm on, stay steadfast and firm on those things. Now, number 7, creating a debt you're beholden to. So controlling people may come on very strongly in the beginning with, romantic gestures, but when you look at it closely, many of those gestures could be like extravagant gifts, expectations of a serious commitment early on, taking you to luxurious meals, adventurous outings, and letting you have full use of their car. These can, be used to control you. So it's in essence, really, they are looking to buy you. Now, I will
Mhm.
say the closest that I've ever come to that was a guy that I had dated last year. And he was, he was into buying extravagant gifts, and he wanted a serious commitment early on. And I was just saying, I was feeling some kind of way about that. And so when I saw that as a great big old red flag, in the air.
But he could have spoiled you.
He
He could have gave you the things you wanted.
I
I bet he was
well,
even a
see,
doctor, and I bet he wanted to share that with you. And I bet he could have, provided all your needs. I'm just guessing, but that's what I bet if I was a betting man. But I'm just
if
guessing.
you were a betting man. So one of the, and I'm going to, add one little more thing, just in my observation of him when I dated him. One of the reasons why I know that this seemed to have been a thing for him was because he had obviously been hurt in other relationships, and he used his money and his title to, he led with that. He led with that.
He had a title?
And, yes.
What was his title?
Yeah, he was an MD. He was a medical doctor.
How about
that? Yeah.
If I was a betting man, I'd have walked away with some money. I know what you're thinking. I had inside information, but they don't know that.
But one of the things that I had picked up from his experience was that he had been involved with some gold diggers, and he was looking for somebody that wasn't necessarily a gold digger. But, even in a relationship with a person who wasn't necessarily a gold digger, he led with his money. And, he was making it clear, because, in addition to, offering the extravagant gifts and wanting the serious commitment early on, even offering me a car. One of the things that we talked about was money and finances. And in that conversation about the money and finances, he kind of laid out that this was his show. If I was going to do, if I was going to do because ultimately, again, I was feeling like really funny about that. Like, this is not right. The money conversation was just the money conversation and the importance of money and blah blah blah. Yeah, but the thing is that I think that he had led with that before, and when you lead with that, the type of woman you're going to attract is a gold digger. I mean, a gold digger, a gold digger is going to be down for that. So, and their thinking and their mentality as a gold digger is, I'm willing to give you the sex, and I'm willing to do this and that for you. But it's not really, that place of coming from an authentic place of caring for, him. You're not going to get that with a gold digger because they are about the dollars in which you can give them. And as soon as your well runs dry, I'm sure that they would run in the opposite direction or just like take everything you had. But anyway, is there anything that you would like to add to that, Harvey?
Nope, you're doing absolutely wonderful because gold diggers are just, it's true. They'll make the exchange, but they still don't play by the rules. But they don't expect you to. For them, the rule is this. They're going to use what they got to get what they want. And when you ask for too much, then they're going to walk away. So you want sex, that's fine. You want to control them, it depends upon how they feel about you. Because at some point, they're going to get what they want, and they're like, I'm out of here. I ain't messing with this fool no more. And they'll take their assets somewhere else.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, number 8 is spying, snooping, and the requiring of constant disclosure. And you know what I really find interesting is that I've heard that, you know, some women have done this. You know, and one of the things that I will say, ladies, and you know, I've talked to a few men about this. The spying, the snooping, the, you know, requiring and constant disclosure, especially when you're like early on in the friendship, relationship, and all of that, you're not going to want to do that. Most grown men, and you know, men will get, you know, puffed up about that. You know, this is something that is unacceptable.
I'm a grown A man, dog.
Yeah, yes.
My mama don't tell me what to do. I ain't gonna be checking in with you. Let's see.
So, you know, controlling your partner typically feels that, you know, a controlling partner is going to feel that they have the right to know more than they actually do. And, you know, whether they keep it secret or openly demand that you must share everything with them, it's, you know, a violation of the boundaries. I mean, it's just clear. You know, perhaps they check your phone. They log into your email. They track your internet history. And they're going to try to justify this by saying that they've been burned before and that they have trust issues. Well, look, honey, if you have trust issues, or look, man, if you have trust issues, then work on those trust issues. And ask yourself why it is that you were attracted people that kind of ran you over. Because understand this, that you doing this type of activity, it's not gonna benefit you. If you found the person that wasn't necessarily into that, you're gonna run them off, and then the person, or you will be involved with the person who's just gonna simply prove you right.
Exactly. And that's what you're looking for anyway, because even if you're with someone who's not trying to prove you right, you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. It's going to be like, you know what, forget it. I might as well do it anyway because you think I'm doing it. So they like, I'm tired of this relationship, so I might as well just go ahead and screw with somebody else. And you're like, they were going to do it anyway. No, that was all in your head. You done pushed somebody to do something. Really, if you got those kind of things going on, you need to just be by your darn self because you ain't going to trust yourself either. But at least you can keep an eye on you better than you can keep an eye on somebody else. All right? So if you a dude and your left hand is cheating on your right hand, have a talk with yourself. If you a chick and you don't trust yourself, then look in the mirror a few times and say, I love you. I'm saying, because that's just some crazy stuff right there. But it happens. It happens a whole lot. And, I mean, you know, in every seminar we do, I give the speech about the guy Mike, fictional character, but the guy Mike, who's dated this one girl for years and things were cool. Now he's in a new relationship, and this woman just don't feel right if she don't know where he is. So he need to check in. But that's a control issue. That's her insecurities. And so the first time it pops up, he's shocked and don't know how to deal with it. And so, you know, things turn into an argument. Ladies and gentlemen, if that's you, get you some help. For real, you may think it's okay, you may think it's normal. There's nothing normal about it. You got serious insecurity issues. And if you can't trust yourself, you can't trust other people. And that's where it began. You'll say, I trust myself. But no, you don't, because you're trying to control somebody else. And I learned a long, long time ago, you can't control somebody else. You can only control yourself.
Ashe.
There you go, Arlene.
Now, there was a person that I had been consulting with before, and I had basically, people don't. I've learned that people don't. Even though some people will ask me questions about their relationships, when I tell them what it is that I see, they choose not to. They choose not to accept what it is that I have to say. But somebody, the person that they were involved with, went ahead and snooped through their phone, and they were looking at some text messages. And now I'm going to put it out there that they may have had some feelings about this person that they had text message with, but he had chose her,
Okay.
But she had turned, made that a big issue in their, a big issue in their relationship. And again, when you're dealing with a grown man and you are trying to control them through this particular activity, it's not going to work out. And I'm just saying. and ultimately, it didn't work out, and it turned out almost exactly like I had said it would. But yeah, ladies, don't do that. Men,
Don't do it.
You're just looking for a heartache. Don't just. And anyway, and if you find that you're involved with somebody that does that, please walk away because I'm telling you that issue will get bigger and bigger and bigger. All right. So, number 9.
Walk away from your love. Gonna walk away, gonna walk away, gonna walk away, gonna walk away. Okay, I'm done.
So, number 9, overactive jealousy, accusations, paranoia. Now, it can seem that a person's jealousy can be flattering in the beginning, but, and it can be viewed as endearing. Now, when it becomes intense, it can be, scary and possessive, and the person who uses your every interaction as being flirtatious is suspicious of everything. Again, I've heard of men and women who have had that particular issue. And the jealousy and the accusations, like Reverend Harvey had said earlier, it pushes the person, either to leave you or actually into the activity itself, of giving you a reason. And one of the things that a person needs to ask themselves, especially if they are jealous, is like, where does that come from? Because obviously you are dealing with a pain from a previous experience and you're bringing it into your present. And my great-grandfather used to have this old saying and I have this saying that when you dig in old crap, it smells worse than it smells worse than when it originally happened. And so you're literally in I will say, if you're bringing your old issues into your present experience, it's going to make it continually worse. Now, is there anything that you would like to add, Harvey, to that?
I think you said it all, and I think we've covered it all. There's nothing worse, really, Well, there is, but there's not a lot worse than being in a relationship with a jealous person because there's so much unnecessary energy burned up trying to prove you ain't doing something that after a while you just get fed up and you're like, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't do it anymore. And so the relationship ends. And the worst part is the person who's dealing with the jealousy, they don't get it. It's manifest destiny, but they don't see how they created the situation. For them, it's just, I knew it. I knew you were going to break up with me. I knew you were going to leave me. Or you were probably cheating all along. You just want to go be with somebody else. No. You drove me to this. You really need help. You really need some help. You got to get over this. You're never going to have the relationship you want if you're always worried that somebody's going to hurt you. I mean, for real, a relationship implies that you relate. And to really relate, you've got to let go of a whole lot of fear in order to make a connection. As long as two people got a wall up, they're never going to connect because there's this barrier that's in between them. And so how long do you think the relationship going to last? At best, you've got a sex life. And usually that's what it is. Sometimes it may be a little bit better, but there's no real connection. Maybe it's a sex life and someone who you enjoy talking to, but it's not a real connection. And that's a horrible thing, and it's even worse when, I've had the pleasure of talking to a woman who talks about not being able to connect with people. And she feels that it's a real problem for her. So at least she realizes that not being able to allow herself to have a deep connection is a problem. What is life if you're not going to actually live it? If you're going to live life safe, you might as well be dead. Take some chances. And if you're going to take chances, start off with taking relationship chances. That's better than taking chances with your life or your money. And sometimes relationship chance can be a chance with your life, but it's less likely to be a chance with your life than messing with some other things. And then it's definitely a better chance than playing with your money. Because, hey, once you lose your money gone. Take a chance with your heart. You more than likely bounce back. And you might learn a thing or two about relationships. You might learn something about you and the kind of person who you don't want to be involved with, so that the next time around you can figure out, oh, no. I seen you coming a mile away. I done already dated you. I need somebody new. Or you might see that, hey, I had somebody good, but I was the fool and kept doing things and mess up. So if I ever get another chance with that person or someone just as good, if not better than that person, then I know what not to do. Next time I fall in love, ooh, I feel like singing tonight. The next time I fall in love, it will be with you. Okay.
Okay, so we are on number 10. And number 10 is not respecting your need for time alone. So here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, and let's just say that I know that I'm one of those persons. I'm a bit introverted, and one of the ways that I actually restore myself is through being alone. And when you're constantly around a person, it's a way, and they're requiring it. It's a way to sap your strength, and and when they try to make you feel guilty about it. So it's natural for two partners that may not automatically have the exact same needs. To have alone time, even if they're both extroverted and introverted, it's healthy in relationships in order for that person to have a relationship with themselves so that they can restore themselves, so that they can be involved with, their significant others. Now, you have anything to add, Harvey?
Huh?
No.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments about that? not respecting the time to for being alone.
It's extremely important that people have some downtime, some time to themselves. I was just talking this week to two ladies, and one of the issues that they have had in relationships is that they've dealt with men who don't know how to back up and give them some space. Now here's what's interesting in one situation. That situation is where the guy knows, as we men typically do, that we need space. And so he takes his time, but then when he comes back, he expects her to be right there waiting. I'll be right here waiting for you. But anyway, that wasn't the right time. Because it's like, okay, I know what you're thinking. When you were gone, that was my time to have time alone, but I didn't necessarily need time alone then. Now I need some me time. And it doesn't work that way. You've got to understand. You've got to respect. Let me put it this way. Because it's more important that you respect than that you understand. Because even if you don't understand it, respect it. Respect the fact that the same way you need time to yourself, your partner needs time to their self. And women, because sometimes women just don't know how. They think that the man they're in a relationship with need to shower them with attention all the time. Back up. Give space. Have some space for yourself. It's super important that people in relationships have their own core friends who are their friends, separate from couples friends. You should still have a life separate from your partner. And I don't mean a full life. You shouldn't leave the house and then you got a girlfriend on the side and a couple kids and you got a whole different car and, you got a whole different job and people know you as somebody completely different. Nah, I'm not talking like that. But what I mean is, in a healthy relationship, you got your boys, Bobo and Peanut and them, and you go hang out with them. And they your friends, not her friends. And y'all do, guy things, whatever y'all going to do, respect the relationship while you doing whatever you're going to do. And then when you come back, you make it time for her. There's y'all time. And when she needs to step away, when she gone with Tanisha and Rhonda, let them hang out in their Honda and do their thing, and don't worry about it. It's going to be all right. Respect the time. Allow her to have her friends. Don't come between her and her friends. And there's times when, sometimes your friends or her friends are trying to ruin the relationship. Those are friends you might need to give a pink slip to. You don't need to put up with that. You don't need that drama. At least step away from them if that's the kind of person that they're going to be, and let them know, look, I'm in this relationship. I need your support. If you can't support me, then, I got to fall back because I can't roll with you for a minute. But anyway, it's important to have that space. It's important to have your time. And sometimes you need time just alone, just to yourself. Not to hang with your peeps, not to run around and do anything, but just, sometimes you just want to sit around the house and veg out and watch TV or something. Do that by yourself. You just, aren't in the mood to be around other people. I call it a case of leave me the F aloneism. And I go through it, and I know I go through it from time to time. And when I'm that way, when the phone ring, I'll look at it and like, okay, I can do without taking that call right now, and I'll holler back later. But right now, it's all about me. I need to take care of me. Get into the habit of doing that if you're not doing that. It's going to make a world of wonder. And learn how to let go. Stop trying to control what somebody else do. It ain't going to benefit you. There's no good that's going to come from it. In the end, you're going to end up sad, angry, and alone. And you don't need all that in your life because there's someone out there who's going to love you just as you are, and they're going to be faithful to you. They're going to be true to you to the best of their ability, and you do the same to them. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes they don't. But the problem is worrying about it all the time. You anticipating it to happen. Why? Keep your mind focused only on that what you want, because what you focus on, what you give your attention to, is going to manifest in your life.
Yeah, because the mind is the center of divine operation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that isn't mine, and I can't recall what her name is. Okay, so I am going to lump the next two together. Number 11 is they try to make you earn your trust or make you earn other good treatment, and you're presumed guilty until you're proven innocent. And essentially that, yes. So, here's the thing. I have always kind of operated in this sort of mind space that, that until the person proves a violation, or I see those red flags, they just automatically, it's just automatic given that they have the trust. And if if you have to earn it, and again, I'm going to go back to my experience, experience and the doctor, that tried to buy me. One of the things that I noticed was that, I got the feeling that I was being tested. And now it's not, and actually when I think back, I had another dating experience with someone, and who I believe had psychology background. Again, that was just a totally different experience too. But they were looking, I will admit that at that time I probably wasn't in the best mind space to be dating at the moment, and it was long before I started. Yeah, long before I started doing this work. But they were looking to, they were talking. He was constantly talking about money on the date, and talking about, the last wife that he had, kind of ran him financially in the ground. And also, so he was looking to test me to see whether or not, that I would go and spend up his money. And I did spend up his money that day because I wanted to eat.
Okay. All right.
But I did actually have the money to actually pay for the meal if he hadn't paid for the meal. One of the, I think I call them tests. So when the doctor, when I went out on a date with him, now mind you, he paid for the meal using a credit card. And he starts patting his pocket, saying that, that he didn't have money for the tip. Now, it's just, I'm thinking, okay, dude, you could actually put the tip on the credit card. But he just but I could tell that he wanted to see whether or not I would come up with the tip money. Instead of just simply asking me, would you take care of the tip? Yeah, hey, you could have, you don't have to, he didn't have to go through all of that. But that was his way, or one of his tests to see if he could trust me. And so here's the thing. The reason why I put, 11 and 12 together is that he came into, both of those gentlemen sort of came into the situation with the energy that I was guilty until I could, prove myself innocent of being whatever type of woman that they had their experience with being with. I don't know, and as far as, presumed guilty until you're proven innocent, one of the examples that they actually give in the article is that, they're already angry. You come through the door and they're already angry about something that they found and thought about in your absence, and they try to keep whatever it is that made them angry as evidence of your wrongdoing and point it out to you to make you feel that, that they've got a whole case against you, even if you don't really understand what it is. Because, of course, that is whatever it is that they're thinking about or feeling, and instead of having a real, honest discussion with you, that's a story that they've actually told themselves. And, how it's hard to fight against a person's story that they're telling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that you would like to add to that?
Oh, no. You're right on point with that. I agree with all that. And, yeah, there's nothing that I want to add to that. But, well, I will say this. To put somebody through that, to allow yourself to be put through that is a terrible thing. If you're always feeling like you have to prove yourself, you're in the wrong relationship. That's all I got.
Okay, now number 13 is that you get so tired of arguing that you'll relent. Now, and it says that while some controlling people like to exert their influence under the radar, many are like openly and chronically argumentative and embrace conflict when they can. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my experience with Bueller. So I felt that I went down to, that area where Bueller was, because he had sold himself as something that he wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I had yelled at him when he told this job interview that he had supposedly set up did not go the way I had expected it. In fact, what had happened was it turned out that the people had not asked him to, get an employee for them in the first place. And what he was looking to do was to sell them on the multi-level marketing business that he was a part of. So when I yelled and screamed at him, he held on to that. He held on to that. And we were in the car, and he started winding up, and he was like, he said to me, I was really surprised. What's the problem with black people? They don't have any ambition. I was like, you know what? I really do not feel like arguing. Well, I don't feel like arguing. And then he was like, and you know what? You don't have anybody. You don't have anybody. I could just put you on the street. I was like, you know what? If you don't want me anymore, you could take me down to Baltimore. And he was like, you changed up the game on me. I was like, I didn't tell you that I burned my bridges. And I was like, look here. Now the thing is that I'm not going to necessarily back down from the argument, but he wanted to make me kowtow to what it is that he was trying to put out his no sense. It's not nonsense, it's no sense. He had no sense, honey.
Okay. All right. Anyway, what I told him was like, look here. You brought me here, and you told me that you had these jobs lined up and that you own these businesses. And you did not have that. So you take me on this interview, and you wake me up. I woke up really early to go over to this place, and it turns out that these people really did not have a position for me. So I was really upset about this. Now, you brought me down here. You haven't talked about an hourly wage. You haven't talked about what type of benefits I would get. You would not talk to me about, what my responsibilities, the logistics of what it is that I'm expecting. I'm thinking that you have this stuff all lined up, and I haven't heard anything. You have nothing. That sounds like how people end up coming across the border. They promise you a job, and there's no details, and next thing you know, you're a sex slave somewhere or some other crazy stuff. You might want to have far more details next time around.
Yeah, well, let's just put it this way. He was definitely a learning experience, and I admit to, my lack of, answering questions and getting the details. And just so that you know, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I allowed myself to really get into that situation was because I was introduced to him through a person that at the time I had trusted. And, let's just say, ladies and gentlemen, never substitute anybody else's discernment for your own. Regardless of whoever it is that, you're introduced to and how cool you may think the other person is, you make sure that you ask questions, you make sure that you get plenty of detail. And I'm going to go ahead and put it out there, and I take ownership for my part in not getting those details. But, again, it was, let's just say it was not a very, it was a more anxious time in my experience. But, anything you would like to add?
Oh, no, I just said okay. No, keep on going. You're on a roll.
Okay. They make you feel belittled for long-held beliefs. It could be your faith, your politics. It could be cultural traditions, in your view on human nature. Now, I will say, I think that this seems to be even in. Okay, so there's certain subjects that I don't enter into because it just seems that people are in a more volatile. It appears that people are in a more volatile stage, and people can't be in a place where they can agree to disagree. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times people, or at least what's being perpetuated in the media, is that if you don't agree with what they're thinking or feeling, then they try to belittle you about it. They try to make you feel bad about it. And here's the thing: you really want to be in a situation where you can, regardless of whether or not you agree with an individual or not, you could just say, well, I don't quite view it that way, but you're cool people, and just accept it at that and move on. But you don't really want to be involved with anybody that feels that you have to think like they think in order to operate and be around them. I mean, and that let's just say that it just appears that that's happening more just in everyday life, or at least it appears to be. Now, I can't say that that's actually the way it is in my personal experience from what I can tell, but it's definitely this image that they're perpetuating in the media.
Okay.
Anything to add, Harvey?
I agree with that. Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. It's definitely, well, I will add, it really seems that people have a rough time connecting with themselves. And we seem to believe that we need somebody else's approval. And because of that, when we don't feel like we have it, when we feel like we're missing something, we're not getting the approval, the appreciation, the appropriate love, then we act out in ways that's not good for us or for other people. And in so doing, we tend to put out an energy that will attract, well, I don't want to use the word victim, but someone who will be susceptible to the wrath we're going to unleash upon them because of the hurt that we're feeling. Basically, hurt people. And so we enter into relationships with people who are not necessarily looking to be hurt, but they're open on a deeper level to your BS. And you create or you inflict all this hurt upon them, thereby trying to make your hurt less. And it doesn't make your hurt less. Your hurt don't go away by hurting other people. And though they say misery loves company, you don't feel any better by having them as company because you don't have them as company. When it ends, and usually y'all can't even be in the same place. You can't have a civil conversation with the other person. So, really, what I see is a whole bunch of relationships that just need help. And it begins with yourself. It begins with, as Michael Jackson said, the man in the mirror. And no, I'm not going to sing it, but it begins with the man or woman in the mirror. And if you don't correct your feelings and issues with that person, you're never going to be able to have the relationship you want with anyone else.
Okay. So I am going to put 15 and 16 together. And in a way they tie together, and in a way they're separate. But the number 15 is that they making you feel like you don't measure up or are unworthy of them. I can't say that I've actually had that, experience personally. And then teasing or ridicule that has an uncomfortable undercurrent. So these kind of dovetail together because teasing can be used as a way of making the person feel that they don't measure up and you're unworthy of being with them. And, of course, it has an uncomfortable undercurrent. Now, let's just put it this way. The teasing, again, again, I actually took a look at some of my relationships when doing that. I truly don't believe in cheating. I think that there's really something, there's an underlying needness to it. Especially if it's a place where it is a sensitive issue for the person. And I recall one time, or it's been several times, my female friend, she will make a joke, and she will make a joke, and there is, Harvey will tell you, or tell anybody that there is something just extremely straight-laced about me, and sometimes I may not necessarily get the joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I acknowledge it. I'm aware. I'm more aware of myself. But the thing is that because of that part of my nature, whenever she would come up with a joke or something that just did not quite hit me right, I will actually respond to her quite seriously, and it is the quickest way to get her off the phone.
Ouch.
Right? And she will say that that she's joking, and I will keep on going straight into whatever it is, whatever explanation it is, and she will get off the phone. But especially if you find that you're one of those people who's like that, and I'm just playing with you, or you shouldn't take it personally. Let's just say if they kind of know your nature, then they shouldn't really go down that line with you if they value the relationship. Again, I recall, and I guess you could say that you would have to kind of play that by ear in terms of the teasing and the ridicule and things of that. If you feel ridiculed, just go ahead and say, you know what, that's not cool. But anyway, anything to add, Reverend Harvey?
Oh, no. I'm with you, and you're right. That's exactly what you need to do. When you recognize it, you need to speak on it, because it is possible that it may be innocent, but it's not innocent for you. I had a situation once where I was
in a relationship, and the person would say things from time to time, and those things would, hurt my sensitive male ego. And I know, and I could be wrong, but I believe that I know that was never the intention. I think it was just something the person was used to doing with a past partner, and it didn't work for me. And so, after a few warnings, that I didn't like it, and please stop, or you're going to see a different side of me. When that different side of me came out, it changed the whole dynamic of things. And so there was even a conversation about, well, you were always this way, so it would have came out anyway. Well, people aren't one-dimensional. Other people like to think that we are. But we all have the ability to be Mother Teresa or Adolf Hitler. Because if it exists in one of us, it exists in all of us. So just because you don't show that quality, that's because you choose not to. And when you're a conscious person, you can choose not to. A lot of people are ruled by their emotions, and so they can't choose not to. I'm a bit more conscious than that. Most of the times, I had to emphasize most because it's not always all the time, but most of the time, I get to choose what I'm going to feel and how I'm going to act. And so there would have never been a need for this person to see a different side of me had they heeded the warning. But they did not. And I understand, because it was a habit. It was a habitual thing. But it was kind of just a joking, nudging thing. And the interesting thing is, it's something that I do with my male friends, but it's something that I never want in my relationship with a significant other. And so for me, it didn't have a place there. This isn't how we act. This is how I act with my boys. But this isn't how we act because we ain't boys. We have a deeper, different kind of relationship. And so anyway, it resulted in, I guess it set a bad precedent because it kind of was the beginning of things going down the bad spiral.
Okay.
So, yeah, you need to address it right off. Don't take it and let it keep going. Address it. And if you see that it's not going to change, then you've got to make a decision. Don't wait on the other person. One thing that, as a relationship coach, I've learned is that people put all their power in other people, and then they say, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. And then when they do something stupid, they still go back to blaming it on the other person. They made me do it. You know what I'm saying? No, they didn't make you do anything. You weren't empowered in the relationship. You just think you were. And a lot of times when you find somebody who you're in a power struggle with, it's because of that very thing. They gave you all their power, and then they're upset because you're not using it the way they want you to. It's like, I've got a script, and this is how you're supposed to act to me acting like this, okay? But the bottom line is you are 100% responsible for you in the relationship, and they are 100% responsible for them in a relationship. If something is said or done, then you need to address it. You need to bring it to the forefront. Don't hold it, and don't blame the other person because it's not their fault. What may work for them with another person may not work for them with you. In that situation, I understood. This is how this person had been with someone else, but it's not how you can be with me. So it was neither right or wrong. It was wrong for me. It's not wrong behavior in itself. It was wrong for me. It was wrong for being in a relationship with me. But it's okay maybe with somebody else.
Okay. So we are going to take a music break.
Yay,
and
music.
And we'll be right back. All righty. And And we're back.
Yeah,
And
that was a great selection. That took me way back. Took me back to my youth. Made me remember sitting in a 57 T-Bird, just out on the avenue waiting for some of the fellas to show up. I was running the comb through my afro back in the days. Oh, man, wow. That was wow. Yeah.
Oh, that is so funny. But okay, I'm glad it made you feel good.
It made me feel real good. Just took me back in the day. Yeah, oh, those were the days.
So we are down to 17.
17.
Well, no, 16. 16. No,
okay.
17. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen.
We're somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. Okay, number 17 is sexual interactions that feel upsetting afterwards. Now, it says here that an abusive and controlling dynamic with a relationship can often make it its way into the bedroom, and sometimes not feel right even in the moment, but other times it's a pattern of uncomfortable after the interaction. Either way, when you feel consistently unsettled about the goings-ons within your sexual relationship, it's a sign that something is wrong.
Okay.
So I guess I will say for me, my experience with this was with a good doctor. And, he wanted to push the issue of sex, like really quickly. It was only second date with him. What's the rush? Yeah. What was the rush? What was the rush? And I think that that was, along with all of the other stuff, that was one of the things that kind of nailed put the nail in the coffin. Like, okay, this ain't going nowhere. We're not a match. Goodbye. So, if you're feeling a way of, you have to build yourself up to actually have, intimacy with that person, or, you're feeling, you're just not really in the mood, if you're not in the mood, just don't do it. I'm just saying, it does, let's just say, from an energetic standpoint, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to be drained in that moment because you are not in an authentic place of wanting to share your body with the other person, or even kiss them, even if it comes down to kissing or hugging them. I'm just not feeling you. If you're not feeling them, if you're feeling uncomfortable on any type of level, then don't go there. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Nope. You covered it all. Don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't
go there.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Because let's just say that we've talked about this before, but there is, an energetic exchange with sexual intimacy. And if you're, even if you have that hint of something that you don't want to do, then just don't do it. Now, number 18, yeah, don't.
Don't go to bed with a price on your head. Don't do it. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Don't do it. You got to keep your eye on the sparrow. I'm sorry. Having a Beretta flashback. Okay. Let's go.
So, number 18, the inability or unwillingness to ever hear your viewpoint. Now, if the person is constantly interrupting you and, what you've expressed is quickly forgotten, I experienced that in my marriage. he would hear me. He wouldn't interrupt me, but it was as if like the things that I had talked about were quickly forgotten. And if the conversation, if a person continues to talk and talk and talk and talk, and there isn't a conversation, there's more of a monologue, and that is an indication of a relationship where you are involved with a controlling person. If you try to get feedback about how their behavior, makes you feel, and the question is whether have they actually taken it, or do they dismiss it out of hand? Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, but it's not a good space to be in. Yeah, you are a sovereign being. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be listened to. And, there should be some type of mutual exchange that's beneficial for both of you. Anything you would like to add, Harvey? Mm-hmm.
Nope. I like all of that.
You like all of that? Okay.
Yeah, because it's very true. Relationships, we make it more complicated than it has to be. And so what we're going through here, with these controlling issues, it doesn't have to be this complicated. More important than whether it's complicated or not, if you're the person who's involved with someone like this, don't have to put up with it. You don't. You think you do, and you'll make up a million excuses why. I love them. Well, if I don't, they're going to do this. And all these excuses. You know what? Until you step up, put on your big boy or girl panties, and say enough is enough, I can't take this anymore, this is over. And be willing to do whatever you got to do, because the alternative is you stay under the thumb, under the foot, under the rule of somebody else, and you never, ever get the opportunity to be who you truly are or have the love that you truly deserve. And the crazy thing about it is you really do deserve it. You just don't know it. That's why you're dealing with a bad relationship, because you don't know how great you are. You don't know how wonderful you are. You don't know that you can do and have better. That's all I got. I ain't got no more. I'm done right there. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Enough said. But we still have two more. The number 19 is pressuring you towards unhealthy behaviors like substance abuse. And what they say here is that somebody who does undermines your fitness goals. If you're trying to quit smoking, they they keep tempting you with cigarettes. They're not respecting your decisions to only have one drink, and they would rather that you have three. These are ways that they say that people, controlling people, can thwart your attempts to be healthier, to be a stronger person. And here's the thing. If you become that stronger person, you don't need them. And that is ultimately why they will try to derail you from whatever your goals may be. And especially, I don't know. I don't recall ever having this particular experience, but I did hear about one person who, he was working towards he was, had been addicted to drugs and things of that nature, got caught at work, and so they put him in a rehab program. And what would happen is, when the person found out, and this seems to be something that's consistent with, I guess that drug experience. But he mentioned that, one time he was in bed and what happened was one of the women that he had some type of involvement would come into his room and blow the smoke in his face.
Wow.
For yes. And it's not, and apparently this is not something that is unusual. Again, the person is not wanting you to elevate beyond where they are. So if this is one of the reasons why, especially when you are looking to make significant changes, this is the reason why they say that you need to change up who it is that is around you. Especially for me, where I really, really see that this is quite pronounced is when people are dealing with addiction. And so you need to hang around people who are going to be there and support you in getting better, in being stronger, in being more independent, and putting yourself in a stronger state. So I do recall, like, there was this man who had been homeless and had this really magnificent speaking voice. And when he was looking to stop being homeless, and stop being homeless and live a healthier life, get off the drugs and all of that, the woman that was his girlfriend was saying that she was going to do everything she could do to thwart him from stop being her drug partner. Anyway, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't. Nope. I ain't got nothing to say about that kind of craziness, because that's just craziness. But people do it. People can be so insecure that if you love them, you'll keep getting high with them. You'll keep doing what you're doing with them. And instead of them wanting to make a change for the better, they want you to stay right where you were. Why? Because this is where you were when they met you. This is who you are. How you going to change up the game now? Come on, hit this blunt. One more time. Just one more time. I ain't going to ask you no more after this. Yes, I will. Again and again. Again and again. As long as I'm doing it, I want you to do it with me. I don't want to be here by myself. I want you to be doing bad too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's craziness.
Okay.
But, again, it comes right back down to the same thing. It always comes down to respecting and loving yourself. The more you love yourself, the less you're willing to put up with all kinds of craziness. The less you're willing to be with people who, you think they love you. You'll start to recognize what love really look like, and you say, yeah, you don't love me the way I need you to love me. And that's not a bad thing. It's just not what I want. It's not what I need. So it's not going to work for us. Arrivederci. Hasta la vista, baby.
And number 20. Okay, so actually 19 and 20 could be combined together. And number 20 is thwarting your professional or educational goals by making you doubt yourself. Again, you may, again, it's about whenever you really want people around you who support your educational goals. And here's the interesting thing. This is those naysayers. One of my favorite. It's a video that I actually had put up on Facebook with the First Lady. And she was, one of the things, she went to Harvard University. And she talks about, how the people around her were saying, we think you're just aiming just a little too high for yourself. We know, we don't think that you had. And she was like, she went ahead and she applied, and she, of course, got in. And when she got there, she's like, and she looked around at the other students, and she's like, these people are no smarter than me. I can hang with this. And what were those people thinking? So those naysayers, those people who are unsupportive of your goals and your dreams, that they don't have anything really constructive to say, the people who are trying to cut your confidence, and here's the thing, these people, this may not necessarily be people who are trying to control you, although they are not looking for you to excel beyond where they are. It's just, and especially if you're in a relationship. And here's the thing, your relationship should be the one place where you should feel empowered, one place where, that this person is like, next to yourself is like one of your main champions, that your soft place to fall, the place where, you can find honor and respect for your goals, and you guys are working as a team. And when one does better, both of you do better. And if you have somebody who's undermining or trying to thwart you from your goals, then, that is a great big old red flag as to, whether or not, this is a healthy relationship, period. Anything that you would like to add, Reverend Harvey?
No, you said it all. Reverend Arlene, you're knocking it out of the park today. You just killing it.
And ladies and gentlemen, well, before we wrap it up, I know that we didn't really get the opportunity to really talk about this, but one of the reasons, or we talked about it, but we only talked about it briefly, but one of the reasons that people tend to be controlling is because they're feeling insecure about themselves. They figure that if they can control the dynamic of their relationship, that, that they will be happy. But the only thing that they do is they exert their control in the relationship. They don't really get to know the person authentically, and end up, in addition to hurting the other person, they actually hurt themselves as well. So, perhaps one of these days we're going to revisit this particular subject, and we can talk a little bit more about what people can do to, recognize and heal from this particular issue. But, Reverend Harvey, is there anything that you would like to add before we sign off?
Yeah, I would. If you find yourself in the situations that we've described today, then reach out to me, because I can coach you through it with self-love coaching. I coach on the 7 pillars of self-love, and everything that we talked about today, and thank you, Reverend Arlene, for bringing up such a wonderful subject to discuss this evening. Everything comes down to how you feel about yourself. It's not about the other person. It never was about the other person. Everything since day one when you first got here, it's always been about you and God, whether you want to hear that or not. It's always been that way, and it always will be that way. So it's not about the other person. The other person can't make you whole because you already whole. The other person can't complete you because there's no script here. There's no director, and there's no Cuba Gooding. The only thing the other person can do
To me galum chisin kadush Vada tu gonna hela da teka Nikige I'm chopping so clear kadush teka Savata nukabel Ushma Tizakatu Yodea Tahalo Production Kavuma Tuko Malambaye Production Kavuma Tuko Malambaye And I will call Gijalayo Minka Titi Zera Kambel Radalam Cha Sagvanu Tavanunura Nagi Bodo Shega Dega Kamavat Saram Bakun Taram Rakamet Zikateka Tamin Ganlam Chasin Kadush But I'll tooth gonna hell out of take Yikige I'm chopping it So prayer Kadush take So Vatanu Kubel Ushma Tizakatu Yodea to Alamo Production Kavumo to go Lalambaye Production Kavumo to go Lalambaye Enabakoa Gijalayo Minka Titi Zera Kabel Radam Cha Sagvanu Tahavanura Nagi Bodo Shega Dega Kawamat Saram Markum Taram Rakumet Zikateka Tamin Galam Shasin Kadush Lada Tuf Gonna Helada Teka Nikige I'm chopping it to prayer Kadush Teka Savata Nukabel Ushma Tizakatu Yodea Talamo Production Kavuma Tuko Lalambaye Production Kavuma Tuko Lalambaye